Most of Week 2 is in the books, and it started back on Thursday night with the game between the Commanders and Packers. The Packers would go on to win with a score of 27-18, and despite the final score of this game looking relatively close, it did not feel that way throughout. And through three quarters, the Packers had 345 yards to the Commanders' 112, to give you an idea of how this game was mostly played. There was also a point in the game where Jaden Daniels was 8 of 13 for 43 passing yards. And my takeaway for Green Bay in this game was what it was after Week 1, and that's that they have a Super Bowl caliber defense. This team is legit, and Micah Parsons' impact on this game is something you have to see to truly understand the impact he has on each and every play. Tucker Kraft also had a really good game as he had 6 catches for a career-high 124 yards. The Washington Commanders are kind of in a difficult situation because of how high the expectations were entering the year, and my biggest concern with this team entering 2025 was I didn't think they were that good. They're not bad, of course, but I don't think the skill position players on this offense are going to be enough, and I think that showed a bit in this game. Jaden Daniels also did not have a great game either, so it wasn't one specific thing with Washington, but this was my concern for them heading into the year, was being a good team and not a great team, and I think it showed in this game. Now to Sunday for Ravens-Browns, where we had a Joe Flacco versus Lamar Jackson game, and the Ravens handled business as they won 41-17. And despite the high score for the Ravens, this wasn't the game you probably thought it was for them. They only had 46 rushing yards as a team and only had 243 yards of offense, and credit to the Browns defense. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they made a few mistakes at the wrong time, and in a 13-3 game, Nate Wiggins intercepted a pass and returned it to the Browns' 5-yard line, and Baltimore made it 20-3. Each team scored a touchdown, then Baltimore had a defensive touchdown, and that was pretty much that. My worry for Cleveland entering the year was if they get in games like this, especially against the Ravens of all teams, they're not going to have the horses to be able to come back. Their defense has been great through 2 games, but unfortunately the offense and special teams have not. For Baltimore, I thought this was a potential trap game, but they did what they had to do to win. Not every game will be like the Buffalo game offensively in Week 1, and while they didn't play the best offensively in Week 2, if there's anything Ravens fans can agree on, an ugly win is certainly better than a pretty loss. We had a potential quarterback matchup of the year in the Big Easy as Mac Jones played Spencer Rattler in what was a really good game for each quarterback. Mac Jones threw for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns as the 49ers won 26-21, and 5 49ers players had 30 or more receiving yards. And I know there's been a lot of injuries for the 49ers through the first few games, to put it mildly, but the biggest thing for them is they're 2-0 with 2 road wins. And last year was a nightmare for the 49ers at times defensively, and Robert Saleh's unit came up when it mattered most in this game. The 49ers had a 2-6 record in one-score games last year, and so far in 2025, they're 2-0 in one-score games. This team will be really fun to watch when they get healthy, and now with New Orleans, this team is in a rebuild, but there still is a lot of positive things to take away. Kelvin Banks looked really good in this game outside of a play or two, which is good for his rookie season, especially in his second career start, and Spencer Rattler had another good game too. Again, the Saints are rebuilding and everyone knows it, but I also thought Jonas Sanker played well when called upon, and you can legitimately see foundational pieces with the New Orleans Saints, which is the entire goal of 2025. The Bills handled the Jets rather easily in Week 2 as they won 30-10, and this game was 30-3 for most of the fourth quarter. I was worried this would be a classic trap game for the Bills as they lost in 2022 and 2023 to the Jets in MetLife, and your division knows you best. But the Bills ran for over 220 yards as a team, and the Bills had 4 drives with 60 or more yards result in points. Joey Bosa also had a great game for the Bills, and the Bills held the Jets to 154 yards of total offense, with their lone touchdown coming from Tyrod Taylor late in the fourth quarter. Aside from the injury scare with Josh Allen, which he came back from, this was a good Sunday of watching football for Bills Mafia. Now for the Jets, a 30-10 final is a lot closer of a score than how it felt for most of this game, and for clarity, the Tyrod Taylor touchdown was a touchdown drive led by Tyrod Taylor. For anyone who wanted to dunk on Justin Fields and the Jets too for that matter, this was your day because it had it all. Poor quarterback play, poor defense from the Jets, and poor timed penalties too. Brandon Stephens is a liability in coverage, and Michael Clemens committed a roughing the passer on 3rd and 19 on the first drive of the game, to which Buffalo eventually scored on, and that set the tone for the day it was for the Jets. This is a classic throw the tape away and move on to the next week. And we're on to Cincinnati for Jags-Bengals, and this was a very thrilling game as Cincy won with the score of 31-27. At the time of this video recording, I do not know the status of Joe Burrow, who left this game early, and we of course wish him and anyone else who unfortunately got hurt this week nothing but the best in recovery and hope to see them back on the field soon. Now, for the Bengals, well, 2-0 is 2-0, and never apologize for being 2-0, especially in the manner Cincinnati won these games. It's a huge difference from where they've been in past years, and credit to Jake Browning for stepping in for Joe Burrow and for Zach Taylor calling a good game for Jake Browning. Obviously, the Bengals' future success in 2025 relies on Joe Burrow being healthy, but they're 2-0 and that's what matters, and good for them. Now with the Jags, Brian Thomas Jr. had 4 receptions on 12 targets in this game with plural multiple drops. He now has just 5 receptions on the year on 19 targets, and this is noteworthy because what a lot of people don't realize or don't remember is a lot of his success last year came with Mac Jones at quarterback, and this was a very winnable game for the Jags. There's also a conversation to be had about the Devin Lloyd interception, and I acknowledge that, but the Jags schedule is going to get a whole lot more difficult, and we'll see what the Liam Cohen-led Jags are made out of after a very frustrating loss. Rams-Titans is up, and if you would have said the Rams would win this game 33-19 before it was played, I 100% would have believed you. And my biggest thing heading into this game was, did you think a Sean McVay-led team was going to lose to a Brian Callahan coach team? And the answer to me was no. Yes, the Titans had J.C. Latham and T'Vondre Sweat out, but this is one of the most frustrating teams week in and week out, and it comes down to coaching. It is unfortunate, but I do think Brian Callahan's days in Nashville are numbered, just 2 games into Cam Ward's rookie year, and 23 penalties in 2 games for Tennessee sums it up. Now, I do think there are a lot of positives to take away for Tennessee, and it's how their rookies looked at times, specifically Cam Ward and Elikayo Manor. I really do think there is something there, and the positives to take away for Tennessee is the progression of young players this team has throughout the 2025 season. The Rams had a slow start to this game, but they came to play in the second half, and Matt Stafford threw one of the prettiest balls you'll see of the year to Davante Adams on the touchdown in the second half. This was a business trip for the Rams, and they eventually took care of business, albeit a little more stressful at times than Rams fans would have liked, but 2-0 is 2-0. Also, credit to Sean McVay for not running it up at the end when he very easily could have. Another NFC West and AFC clash as we have Seattle at Pittsburgh, who won this game on the road 31-17. Without a doubt, the biggest change in this game was Seattle scoring a special teams touchdown off rookie Caleb Johnson not knowing the kickoff rules. But even without that, Seattle was getting home to Aaron Rodgers routinely, and I have concerns with Pittsburgh's offensive line. They averaged just 3.4 yards per carry, and Rodgers was battered around all game, and this is not a good sign for a quarterback who is already 41 years old. Outside of Jaylen Warren and the one specific sideline catch by Pat Freiermuth and also the DK touchdown against his former team, this was a very forgettable day for the Steelers offense. My biggest concern for the Steelers after this game is I was hoping they could be serviceable in some areas, most notably offensive line and the run defense, and they really haven't been through 2 games, and there's no sugarcoating it. They've been bad in those areas. The biggest thing I wanted to see from Seattle in this game was to spread the ball around more, as their second leading receiver in week 1 had just 15 receiving yards, and they did a good job of this in week 2. Jackson Smith-Njigba had his second straight 100-yard game, and to put it simply, he's playing really good football. I was also ecstatic to see Torrey Horton catch his first career touchdown too. The run game difference between the backs needs work, but a double-digit road win across the country is the main takeaway for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, who would have thought one of the most entertaining games of the week would have been the Patriots and Dolphins? Well, it came down to the very end as the Patriots outlasted the Dolphins and won 33-27. This was New England's first win in Miami since 2019 when they were led by a broadcaster named, I think it's Thomas Brady? Anyway, this was also the Patriots' first time scoring 30 points as a team since October 16th of 2022. Obviously, this game wasn't perfect for the Patriots, but this type of fighting and resilience is what I expected from this team under Mike Vrabel, and the biggest thing, of course, was coming out with a win. I had 2 big thoughts while watching this game, and it's that Josh McDaniels called a good game, and Drake May looked really good too. This was always going to be a work in progress, but this was good progress to see, and also a big shout out to Milton Williams. Now for Miami, I don't have a lot of positive things to say. The most positive thing I can muster up after this game is you play Buffalo on Thursday night, and if that game goes how every Dolphins fan thinks it's going to go, then the end of the McDaniel and Greer era may be as soon as this Friday. This is a bad team and they're underperforming, big time. I had very, very little confidence in Tua to win this game at the end, and the way the game ended for Miami was unfortunately fitting. We're only 2 weeks into the season, but I go back to a question I asked all summer with this team, and the question is, what is their plan? Giants-Cowboys was a very fun game as the Cowboys would go on to win 40-37 in overtime. Now with the Giants, obviously this loss stings, but this was a huge game for the offense, especially after how anemic they looked in Washington in Week 1. Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson combined for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns. That should be enough to win the game, especially with how much money has been invested in the Giants defense during the Joe Schoen era. Period. So while another loss to the Dallas Cowboys is unfortunate, the offense looked great in this game. And I'll leave this next part like this. Giants fan, please comment below what you think of Shane Bowen and his prevent defense at the end of the fourth quarter. I'm a huge follower of the belief that prevent prevents wins. Now, for the Cowboys, I was wrong about how I thought this team would play under Brian Schottenheimer before the season started, because this team never gives up. Dak finished the game with over 360 yards and 2 touchdowns, and CeeDee Lamb had his second straight 100-yard game. Javonte Williams has also turned the clock back over the first few weeks of the year, and this was a really good showing by the Cowboys offense. There's obviously work to be done defensively, and the Cowboys actually signed Jadeveon Clowney after this game ended, but a win is a win, and there's a big difference between starting out 1-1 and 0-2. Also, Brandon Aubrey is a borderline cheat code. He is incredible. Lions-Bears is up, and we'll start with the Lions. This was a huge game for them, as they certainly wanted to get back at Ben Johnson, their former offensive coordinator, who is now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And they did. They put up 52 points, and Jared Goff threw for over 330 yards and 5 touchdowns. Oh, and they also ran for nearly 180 yards and 2 touchdowns as a team. They had 511 yards of offense, and they had 2 100-yard receivers, as Amon-Ra St. Brown had 115 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Jameson Williams had 108 yards on just 2 receptions. This was as perfect of a day as you could have hoped for offensively for the Lions, and they are very much back. Also, if you watched this game live, you'll understand this. Shout out Deion Branch for the interception. Now, for the Bears, we're 2 weeks in, and I was dead wrong about this team. This is ugly. Ryan Poles is 15-38 now as a GM, is 4-22 on the road as a GM, and the Bears defense looked terrible in this game. There's no sugarcoating a 52-21 loss to a division rival, and you know your team wanted to win this game specifically to prove their head coach right. The biggest problem is this is not supposed to be a rebuilding year. This is supposed to be the start of turning this team around. This is supposed to be the start of what your future looks like, and in the last 5 quarters, the Bears have been outscored 73-28, and I don't have any other takeaway other than how bad of a situation this is, because truly, what is the solution to fixing the Chicago Bears? The Cardinals narrowly defeated the Panthers 27-22, and whenever this game started, especially with 2 Bryce Young turnovers in the first 2 Panther drives, I thought, oh boy, here we go again, and I especially thought this when Arizona came out of half to make it 27-3. I thought, great, this is a repeat of how the 2024 Panthers season started, and that this is going to be a very long rebuild. And while I didn't come away from this game thinking Carolina is going to the playoffs this year, I was really glad to see this team not roll over. One frustration I have with this team that is fixable is how many deep developing passing plays they called at the end with how much time was left, especially with multiple offensive linemen out. Bryce Young rebounded well in this game, but if I do have one clear, or I guess loud takeaway through the first 2 weeks, it's that I don't think Xavier Legette is going to work out long term in Carolina. In 2 games, he has 15 targets and has 4 receptions for 8 receiving yards. That's obviously extremely frustrating in itself, but it's also frustrating knowing Ladd McConkey was on the draft board when they selected Legette. Now for Arizona, a win is a win, but Cardinals fans know this type of win cannot continue. You are 2-0, and that is the most important thing, but your 2 wins were extremely stressful wins against Spencer Rattler and Bryce Young that, quite frankly, should not have been stressful wins. And that's the thing I'm going to be paying attention to with Arizona moving forward is how do they close out ball games? Because if they do this against great teams, they're not going to win as many games as they're capable of in the 2025 season. To Indy for Broncos Colts, and through 2 games, the Daniel Jones-led Colts are 2-0 and have put up 62 points in the process, 29 of which came against the Broncos. I could not have been more wrong about the Daniel Jones-Anthony Richardson situation heading into the season, and I really want to credit Indy's coaching staff and front office for making the right decision, and I couldn't be happier for them. Now, this next part is a Shane Steichen thing, not a Daniel Jones thing, but the process at the end of the game was bad, and I do think Colts fans would agree with that, as in settling for a 60-yard game-winning attempt, but there was a penalty at the end, and they ended up winning from a 45-yard Spencer Schrader field goal. Also, the Cam Bynum signing for them has been tremendous through 2 weeks. Now, for the Broncos, this loss is the textbook definition of frustrating. Will Lutz missed a 42-yard field goal in a 2-point game, and as if that wasn't enough, a leverage penalty on a 60-yard kick at the end? Are you serious? A leverage penalty? You can have the conversation of it being a bad or poorly timed call, but you can't allow 470 yards of offense on the road and lose the turnover battle and expect a win. And what's really tough for Denver is their upcoming schedule. This was a game they could have won and unfortunately let it slip away. And playing in LA against the Chargers next week is not going to be an easy game by any means. We had a Super Bowl 59 rematch in Arrowhead Stadium in Week 2 as the Eagles defeated the Chiefs with a score of 20-17. And a lot of the time, whenever you have Titans like this play against each other, as simple as this is, it usually comes down to a play or two. And the play that went in the Eagles' favor was undoubtedly the Travis Kelce play at the goal line, in which Andrew Makuba intercepted the ball as the Chiefs were about to score a touchdown. That was a 14-play, 8-minute drive in a 13-10 game, and the Eagles went down to score to make it 20-10. And we've seen the Chiefs do this to other teams in the past plenty of times, but this time it was done to them. Now, this game is not solely on Travis Kelce. I don't want that to be the takeaway, because I do think there are big concerns for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes was the leading rusher for the 2nd straight game, and you're not going to win many games like that. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco combined for 18 carries for 53 yards, and they're also banged up, and they're 0-2 for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era. And they play Baltimore in Week 4, and there is a very real possibility this team is 1-3 through 4 games. The Birds are 2-0, and good for them, and this is something to pay attention to, not a concern, but something to pay attention to, and that's how the offense is moving the football. Kevin Patullo was in his 2nd career game as an OC, but with how much talent the offense has, I do think it is a little concerning for how little they've moved the football in their last 6 quarters. For clarity, I think they'll be fine and still think they are very much Super Bowl contenders. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe, as we are trying to 215,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.